I just want to thank everybody for coming. First, I want to thank Rabbi Malayov for hosting this very important event for the community and your beautiful Basic Knesset. We appreciate it very much being able to have these people. And Rabbi Bengio, who really was the person behind this idea of getting together. Now, I know you're probably looking around and you're wondering, how is it that we can fit in 5,000 people into this meeting today? Like 5,000 people, it's huge. But you have to understand something. I knew from one of my rabbis, he used to teach and he used to get up and he'd have like 35 people in his class and he'd bang on he'd scream at the top of it. He'd be and one day there was a very bad snowstorm and only 5 people showed up. And he gets up and he's banging and screaming. And they said, Rabbi, there's only 5 of us here. He says, you think I see only 5 of you? I see thousands of you, your children, your children's children, your neighbors, your friends. So you guys are not, I see lots and lots of people. So first the question I have to ask is, how is everybody's English? Is there anybody here, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot, it's the Bahrain community, Russian, whatever. Is the English okay? Because we have Igor here, my dear friend, and Igor is fluent in Russian. And what I was going to do is I was going to speak, and then if anybody has a question or something, it's a safek, something that don't say, could you explain that? And then we pass it over to Igor to explain.
Yeah, okay? Guys, I can do translation in Russian.
Is there any way you can do translation just because my father would be easier for him in Russian?
Yeah, what we'll do is, in other words, if we could do the translation. I prefer to do it sort of in English, and then if you don't understand,
well, I know he wouldn't, so that's why.
Could you maybe do it with him? I just don't want it to go. I don't want everybody to be here too long. We could try, okay? That's all I'm concerned about.
Yeah, because if I will do translation word by word, it will be double time.
It's going to be double the time, okay? But also, just so you know, whatever we're doing, Igor is available to sit down one-on-one and do this. Neri also, you speak Russian, right? He's available, he can sit down and do all of this, okay? So hopefully that's it. Anyway, I don't know, my name is Mark Halpern. I've been involved in the planning business for now 35 years, so it's a long time. And I noticed that if we look around the city, everybody's very busy, right? We all have things to do, a list of things to do. And everybody today has ADD. You know ADD, right? Don't show me stuff don't send me an email with more than 1 paragraph. If you're gonna text me, 3 words maximum and emojis. Don't give me more, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to do anything. So what we want to do is we feel that there's financial literacy, basic literacy that's missing from our community. And it's really important that we take care of these things, as they say, while the sun is shining. Because while the sun is shining, we can make choices and do things planning about it, but when it's not shining, there's a lot more riding on the line, unfortunately. So, Igor, do you want to just maybe tell everybody who you are?
Yeah,
and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, brief introduction. I'm financial advisor since 2009, so it's 16 years in business.
You can even do it in Russian. I think everybody, do it in Russian.
На русском? Окей. Я уже 16 лет в этом бизнесе, оригинально из России. В 2003 году я уехал в Израиле жил 5 лет в Ашдоде, потом приехал сюда, занимаюсь тем же, чем Марк, только немножко меньше, потому что моложе. Вот. Ну и, в принципе, вот мы с Марком вместе делаем такие ивенты и объясняем людям, как правильно финансово себя вести в ситуациях с завещаниями, с минимизацией налогов и прочие вещи, которые, в принципе, желательно, даже, я бы сказал, обязательно знать каждому человеку. Просто есть такая поговорка «we don't know what we don't know», да? То есть мы не знаем то, что мы не знаем. То есть есть вещи, которые мы даже не имеем понятия, что их надо оптимизировать или каким-то образом позаботиться о том, чтобы было вот так, а не вот так. Да? И когда уже это поздно узнается, уже обычно ничего не сделаешь.
Okay, and Rabbi Malayov, Igor is available for a minyan 3 times a day if you need. Okay?
And you?
I got it over on the corner. Ashkenazis, you know.
Yeah,
you guys are doing the real stuff. I go over to the... So I want to walk you through, sometimes you want to give somebody to drink, right? So it's nice to give them from a little glass, you know, you could drink it. Sometimes though, when you have a lot of information, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So unfortunately, we're not going to give you a little Dixie, we're going to give you the big picture. We're going to let you see, and we really want people to have questions. So if you have a specific question about your situation and you want to talk about it privately, you can always reach out to us afterwards. If you have a question that you think, you can say, I know somebody who has this problem, and even though you're talking about yourself, it could really help people in this audience who likely have the same question, right? So we'll do that. So I'm going to walk you through some stuff, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll feel empowered, you'll have more information, and I want you to know that getting things organized, it's like, you know, we just went through COVID. Remember, COVID was a very scary time. People were much more aware of their mortality, that they might die, right? It also made them very much aware of their incompletions, things that they didn't have completions. And all those incompletions, they rent space in our brain because we don't know, and that zaps us of energy. So hopefully, we'll give you some information that you can have more peace of mind, okay? Going forward. Okay, let's go. So first thing, just make sure that whatever we speak about, don't do on your own. Make sure that you speak to a professional. I've had people who've gone ahead and heard me, or they learned from me, and then I find out that they did something, and then they get a tax bill for $300,000 from the government. They say, what happened? I said, well, you didn't listen. That wasn't the way to do it. So please make sure that you get help. Now the government, you know, the liberals are having their meeting on the leadership, and we might, please God, have a new election soon. So apparently the liberals want to make it easy for all of us, and they're going to be introducing a new one-page tax return with only one question. One question. You can see it over there. It's going to have one page and one question. How much money did you make? Send it to us. Right? Like, we laugh, but taxes have gone very up. I'll just give you an idea. Today, the reality today is that, you know, taxes have gone up, and they're going to continue to go up. You have a tax on your income, you have a GST, you have a tax on, there's no wealth tax, there's no inheritance tax in Canada, there is in the States, but there's a tax on all sorts of things, and we only see it going up and not going down. Most people don't know what those taxes are. Secondly, most people have not done, they don't have wills in place. We'll talk about that soon. 50% of Canadians have a will. That means 50% of Canadians don't have a will. And the people who do have a will, it's mostly not up to date. Not up to date. And it wasn't done necessarily by a professional. And we'll see, you don't necessarily need a professional always, but these are very important basic estate planning things. Number 3 is, most people have done no planning or very little planning. They're sort of like, they just do stuff, but it's not part of a bigger plan. And with COVID, as I said, people are much more aware of their incompletions. And we'll also see as we go along that you're going to have a choice where your taxes go. You can actually have your taxes go to family, to charity, and to the government. Family, charity, and the government, and each of us can pick 2. Most people would say, I'll take my family and charity. So I want to help people figure out how to give more tzedakah. And it's not money you're writing a check for, it's money that the government is not getting instead for you. And really what I said before, everyone needs a team. You need an accountant, you need a lawyer, you need an insurance person, an investment person, and everybody's got to be talking together. Instead of just going to one person, this is very specialized. You really need to have a team of people. And we work with great people across the city. So depending on how complex your situation is, we can get you somebody on Bay Street. We can get you somebody in Richmond Hill that can do the same work. But the point is that there's lots and lots of good advisors available in our community that we should be tapping into. So I just say that I've been in the business for 35 years, but my real start in the business was actually in 1974. That's when my father, Oliver Shalom, of blessed memory, he died of a heart attack at the age of 50. This Shushan Purim, which is falling on Friday night, Shabbos, that'll be his 51st Yahrzeit, 51 years ago. And what happened, I was 11 years of age. I was only 11. I was the youngest of 4 boys. And my mother, who was 48 at the time, had to go back to work to support her family. It was very tough for us. My father loved us very much. He was a good man, but he was very busy. There was no will, there was very little savings, and there was no life insurance. So it was very hard for us. We had to develop sort of a struggle muscle, like to be successful. But fast forward, I meet people who are extremely successful and doing very well, like all of you here, and you would think they'd have everything all organized and together. But I would suggest that 80% of the time it's not true. They're so busy looking after everyone and everything else, they don't have basic things together or planned. So what we do, as Neri does over there in the back too, Neri, put your hand up. Excellent advisor. What we do is we do 3 things. We do estate planning, making sure that people's financial architecture and their financial furniture actually lines up with reality. We look at tax mitigation strategies, ways to keep more taxes for your family or for charity. And the last area that we're involved with is tzedakah planning, helping people create legacies, often by converting taxes into charity. Now, for all of you, you're going to be spending your life, hopefully, accumulating money. I know if you're Jewish and you send your kids to Jewish schools, it's like most of the time, exactly. Most of the time, you don't see this sort of going up. But, then there's like borrow from the in-laws, the grandparents, or sort of figuring out. But for a lot of people, they just keep accumulating stuff, and they've got things, but they haven't put a plan together. A plan together means sitting down with a financial professional and taking all of your things, like your RRSPs that we'll talk about, or your house, or your debts, or your, any of your other assets that you have, bank accounts, etc., and putting it into a financial model to make sure that you're on track, that you can get a check mark, that you're going to be okay, at retirement or helping your kids or whatever the case might be. And then also it'll help you see what's the tax bill today, what the tax bill will be after 120, and if you have any money that you're never going to spend that you're just paying taxes on, we can do some work with that. So there are 2 types of people. 2 types of people. There are those who spend first and they save what's left over. Okay, so they spend first and they save what's left over. For most of those people, there's more month than money, right? And then there are those people who save first, so they pay themselves first, and then they spend to their heart's delight. That first group represents 96% of the population. Just spends it, no planning. And then the other group represents 4% of the population. To get to that 4%, you don't have to be an accountant or a financial advisor. You can do it yourself, but you have to realize that there are certain things we're going to look at. Things like having emergency money, saving money, debts, planning for retirement, making sure that you're protected in case, God forbid, something happens to you in the meantime. What it comes down to is you have to pay yourself first. So if I told people in this room, if you could put aside $5,000 a month for your savings and your retirement, could you do that? You'd say, are you crazy? I can't do it. But if I told you, could you put away $100 a month? You could probably say, yes, I could. So some number, you have to figure out what number between $100 and $5,000 that you're going to pay yourself first. Because if you don't, you'll never have anything. It'll always keep, it's like this. Imagine somebody's in a movie theater, okay? And you're there with your family. Of course, you're not at a movie theater. You're at like a Shweki concert, okay? Shweki. And you're there with your family, and over there is, your bank manager, your car lease guy, the visa guy, and God forbid there's a fire. Chas v'shalom. So what are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, just wait, kids, let me just get the bank manager, and I'll put him on my shoulder and bring him out to rescue him, okay? And, kids, I'll be right back. And I'm going to take the visa guy. And you're going to take care of your kids, right, and your family. But what do? We take care of all those other people, and we don't take care of ourselves. So it's really important that you take care of yourself first. Now, we have a lot of taxes here. This is also something that a lot of people don't know about. These are all things that when you die in Canada, and if you have a spouse, you have a husband or a wife, and you die, everything goes to your surviving spouse tax-free. So there's no tax when you die. If you have a spouse, it goes over to your spouse tax-free. But on the second to die of a husband and wife, it's considered as if you've sold everything at that moment at market value, and then you have to start paying taxes. These are all things that if you have and they go up in value, if you sell them or you die without a spouse or at the second to die, that you pay taxes on. So here's an example. These are what the tax numbers are. If you have an RRSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan, or a Registered Retirement Income Fund, which you have to do when you have an RSP, it becomes this RIF at age 71, or you have a pension, the government is going to take 53.5% of that money. That means if you have an RSP with $1 million and you're going, geschmack, $1 million, it's only worth $470,000 if you pull it out now or you die without a spouse. That's a lot of money you're giving up to the government. Or if you have capital gains, let's say you have a house and you have another house, and that house is an investment house. And you bought that house, right? You bought that house, let's say, for $250,000, and now it's worth $1.25 million. Well, when you sell that, you're going to have to pay a capital gains tax of $270,000 on the gain, 27% of the gain. That could be a cottage. That could be any investment real estate. That's a big number. Or if you have shares in a company, non-registered stock, let's say you bought some stock for $100,000 and now it's worth $200,000, so you're going to pay $27,000 tax when you sell it or when you die without a spouse to roll it over to. Or if you have a company, you have a business. You can have a business that you started for $1,000 and now it's worth $5 million, and then God forbid you die, the government's going to want 27% over $1 million of tax on that. So, or if you have a money inside of a corporation, let's say you have an operating company or a holding company, you could have a double tax on that. Anyway, you go through this and you realize you're not as wealthy as you think you are. So it's very important to go through this exercise to make sure you know what the taxes are. So I did this presentation. There was an 80-year-old woman who was listening to me, and we met, and she was a widow, Holocaust survivor, and she was very proud of the fact that she was worth $10 million, and she did it all on her own. She worked very hard. She knew stocks very well. And then I said, Sandra, you're not worth $10 million. You're only worth $6.5 million. Anyway, she said some words that I'm not going to repeat here. It wasn't very nice for an 80-year-old woman to say the words she said, but she was not happy. Why? She had a RIF that was over $3 million without a spouse. $1.5 million of that is going. She had a stock portfolio of $5 million, another $1 million. It wasn't difficult to see it disappear. So that's why with proper planning with her, we were able to make sure her family got the whole $10 million. The government got nothing, and we included charity in some of this planning. So anyway, those are the types of things, but that's why planning is so important. Now let's talk about the big picture. Yes, please.
Question on the previous page, what's the tax administration?
That's an estate administrative tax. Thank you very much for bringing that up. We're going to see where it says estate administrative tax. If you have any assets, let's say it's a house, let's say it's a bank account, let's say it's an investment account, and it's in one person's name. Not two people. If you have two people, not a problem. But if it's in one person's name and that person dies, in Ontario, there's something called probate taxes. And the government takes 1.5% of the market value of those assets. So if you're sitting there with a house, even your own personal house, and you die, there's going to be a $15,000 tax on a house that's worth $1 million. That's a grab by the government. Notice it's called the State Administrative Tax, EAT. The government's eating your money. Why? Because I don't want to go too into the weeds. Let's say you have an executor of your will, and now your executor goes into the bank and says, hi, I'm the beneficiary of my mother's estate, and here's the will. And they say, how do we know this is a real will? We can't just give you the money. So they'll send the will to something called probate, where they'll verify the will, that the will is appropriate, because the bank would be very irresponsible if they just gave the money away to somebody who said they were the beneficiary, and let's say the bank was wrong.
Even if you have the will? Even if you have the will?
No, so even if you have the will. Even if you have the will. Now, there's ways around it. There's ways around it. If there are people, if they have a business or they're more sophisticated, they have two wills. They have a business will and they have a personal will. Or they put two names on the title. So I was talking to somebody over there, and this is a good point. Let's say you're divorced or widowed, and you have a house. So you go, okay, I'm going to put my daughter's name on the title, right? And if you do that, there's no probate tax. No probate tax. But now that house is really owned half by your daughter. So if it goes up in value, it's not her principal residence, there would be tax on that potentially. Or if she gets sued, that's a problem. Or if she has a marriage that breaks up, now your house is part of her property. So you have to be very careful. Yes?
What happens if there is no will?
So we're going to talk about that in just a sec, okay? But, okay, we'll talk about it right now. Why not? It's very important. What if there's no will? So in Canada, the government has a formula for how your money is going to go out to your beneficiaries if you have no will, okay? The government says this. The first 300, let's say you have a wife or a husband and young children under 18. The formula says the first $300,000 goes to your spouse, okay? And then the rest gets divided between the spouse and all of the under 18-year-old kids, okay, equally. And the amount for the kids gets invested by a public trustee in GICs until they hit 18 and then they get the money. Is that what you'd like to see happen? It's crazy. I know of a case where somebody they died, they didn't have a will, they had a spouse, and they had 2 children. So the wife got $300,000, and then she had to sell the house because her 2 kids owned the other piece of the estate. So they had to come up with the money to be able to put aside for those children to protect them. So what I'm trying to say is, do not have a will. You must have a will. Now, you can, so does that answer your question? If you don't have if your children are all after age 18, so then it would just go to your spouse. Okay? But that also means there's nothing that's going to charity, there's nothing that's going to any of your other children or any of your nephews or your nieces or anything. Yes?
But it's very important things that Igor can explain that.
Please.
That's
the main thing.
About not having a will?
Yeah.
Да,
значит,
если нету, есть, да.
Да, значит, на русском языке то, что сказал Марк сейчас. Значит, очень важно иметь завещание.
На русском.
По-русски объясняйте.
Да, очень важно иметь завещание, потому что если завещания нет, то включаются government rules. Это провинциальные, да, в каждой провинции они свои. То есть если умирает человек и он без завещания, то есть обычно люди во многих случаях не имеют завещания, потому что они думают, окей, у меня жена, маленькие дети, жена все получит, потому что, да. На самом деле жене положено 300 тысяч первых, а потом все делится поровну между всеми, включая детей. Соответственно, если дети подростки или вообще маленькие дети, в этом случае они не имеют права, естественно, распоряжаться никакими деньгами, и приходит назначенный трасти от правительства Онтарио и вкладывает их долю в GIC до 18 лет. То есть жить нам как-то надо, кушать как-то надо, и мы смотрим в длинную подзорную трубу в 18 лет, когда же нам, детям, вернут наши же деньги. Естественно, я думаю, никто не хочет быть в ситуации, когда граждане из government управляют нашими деньгами или деньгами наших детей. Опять же, как Марк сказал, случай был конкретный, когда вдова должна была продать дом, чтобы ликвидировать, как говорится, обналичить часть активов, чтобы просто с детьми поделиться. Это как при разводе, допустим, да, когда spousal buyout, получается, значит, мы рефинансируем, отдаем одному, если не получается, разводящийся дом продают. Вот тут получилась такая ситуация.
Обязывают продавать дом.
Обязывают, надо просто разделить поровну. Откуда у тебя взять? Откуда-то надо взять. Из дома взять, значит, из дома. Вот. То есть, естественно, это связано с огромными потерями финансовыми, нервотрепкой и, естественно, дичайшим ухудшением лайфстайл до того момента, пока детям эти деньги вернутся. Уже я не буду в дебри идти, если есть большой бизнес, у которого тоже есть value, и детям также часть прилетит в виде бизнеса, это вообще горе. Если дети взрослые, они уже распоряжаются сами. Но в любом случае...
В любом случае жене перепадает только 300 тысяч, остальное дети.
Остальное поровну. Нет, остальное потом поровну между всеми. Да. Вот. Но самая главная проблема, естественно, возникает, когда детям нет 18, потому что тогда вместо детей приходит Government of Ontario.
Насчет таксы, есть разница, если есть will или нету?
Нет. Наличие или отсутствие завещания налогообложение в данном случае не меняет, кроме того случая, что Марк уже сказал, что если у нас есть бизнес, мы делаем secondary will, и тогда secondary will вот корпорации, да, то есть, соответственно, там нету, это не subject of probate, то есть не берется этот налог с того, что идет по secondary will. И многие из вас, мы практически все знаем, что principal residence, то есть дом, в котором мы живем, он tax-free, да? То есть мы умерли или продали дом, мы не платим таксы, мы не платим capital gain tax. Вот этот IT мы платим, включая наш дом principal residence тоже, то есть эти 1,5% платятся с equity на момент смерти. То есть если дом был mortgage-free, вы со всего value заплатите этот налог. Если дом стоил 2 миллиона, моргиджа было 500 тысяч, значит с 1,5 миллиона будет заплачен налог, но он будет заплачен всегда.
Поэтому
Даже
лучше брать
если-
сколько можешь.
Логичный поинт, да. То, чем больше у вас баланс моргиджа на момент смерти, тем меньше заплатят этот такс.
А такс, даже если ты не продаешь дом, ты должен заплатить?
Конечно. Это касается не только налога на estate, но и capital gain всего. То есть, Mark, I'm translating the disposition
I
thing.
understand everything.
Значит, в момент смерти последнего из супругов government считает, что все активы, которым владел данный человек, как будто бы, это называется deemed disposition, то есть как будто бы все активы продали по рыночной стоимости на момент смерти. Были акции, смотрим, сколько акций стоили на бирже, их как будто продали. Рентал дома, купил человек когда-то дома по одной цене, сейчас они выросли, там тенанты живут, умер человек, уже Трюдо голова появляется, да, не онтарийская, и говорит, capital gain, вы купили там за 300 тысяч, сейчас стоит 2 миллиона 300 тысяч, 2 миллиона capital gain, платите, пожалуйста, вот такую сумму. Живых денег нету в семье, да, ликвидити никакой нет. То есть тогда надо что-то делать, и обычно, вытаращив глаза, люди ликвидируют часть активов, просто чтобы рассчитаться с CRA, а мы как раз решаем вопрос, чтобы этого не делать. Да?
I just want to clarify for myself. What if it's your main residence, yeah? And the person died after...
No tax, only probate tax.
Estate tax, 1.5%.
1.5%, so $15,000 per $1 million that you have.
That's if you are mortgage free.
Yeah, minus the probate.
Whatever equity you have,
So
doesn't matter.
if you refinance and you take a mortgage out, how does that fall
Yeah.
into the picture? Like,
Yeah, again, remember, we're not talking about a big number. These are the small numbers. 1.5% is small stuff,
But
right?
also in terms of capital gain, let's say.
No, in terms of the capital gains, you're going to get hit on the market value. You're going to get hit on the market value, and any of the gains from what you paid for it, will be gains. And then the mortgage, you'll be able to reduce the mortgage on the capital gain, right?
If you bought it for $1 million, you put it 200,000 down payment. So yeah, now you have an 800,000 mortgage. You paid for 20 years. Now you have a 200,000 mortgage. You decide to refinance.
But remember, now it's not worth $1 million. Now it's probably worth considerably more.
Yeah, so
Let's
now
say it doubles.
Let's say it doubles, $2 million. So now you take out again a mortgage. So let's say now you have 1.5 million mortgage on this house. what you pay the capital gain on
No, you're going to pay it on the market, the difference between what you paid for it initially and what the market value is.
Let me translate.
Yep, please.
Значит, большая путаница происходит, потому что разная база для этих налогов. Значит, налог на эстейт онтарийский 1,5% на все дома. Неважно, principal residence, не principal residence, именно на equity в доме. То есть value минус mortgage. Capital gain к моргиджу вообще никаким боком не относится. И, естественно, он пока что не берется с principal residence, то есть он берется с second home, с коттеджа, с ренталов и так далее. Вот купили и на момент смерти. Ну, бывает там еще capital improvement, оно это немножко там базу эту завышает, да? То есть capital gain и estate tax это две разные вещи, и они и то, и другое. То есть, если у вас rental property, там будет и то, и другое.
You got a good head, though.
I tell you, I saw a piece of information that says that if you have, the more mortgage you have, the less capital gain you pay.
No,
But I don't know if
estate
it's
tax.
here or in the U.S.
No, that would apply to the probate tax, not
Yeah.
in the U.S.
We'll talk after.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so by the way, this is being videotaped, just in case anybody's interested. I just want you to know that we're going to make this video available to people who are here so you can review it again. And also, there were a lot of people who weren't able to make it today, so we just want them to be able to have that as well. So we're going to go on, okay? Like, if there's a very specific situation to you, if you think it's going to apply to most of the audience, bring it up. Otherwise, please reach out to us and we can help you.
I just wanted to ask if for example, a mother and a daughter, they are both in the title, and the mother dies. So what's happening? They are both in the title.
Yeah, so it goes automatically to the daughter. There would not be any probate taxes, and there'd be no capital gains taxes.
Nothing. Just continues to live in the house.
That's as long as they've been living in the house together. If you go ahead today and you have another property, right? Not just your principal residence, an investment property, and you say, here, I'm going to now add my daughter to that.
Yeah, this I understand. No, the principal
Principal res, correct.
they live together.
Yep.
They live together, and
What
she
if they
dies.
don't live together?
Yeah, okay. I'm asking you, she's in the title. She's in
Yep.
So the mother dies, and she continues to live without any problem.
Yep. No problem. Now, the issue that you should just be aware of with that is now that asset, while you're living with your daughter, she owns the house, right? Which means she can kick you out. I'm just saying, like, I mean, if she wants to. And if she ever gets sued, that house,
Her name is on the title.
I'm just saying,
Also on the title. So
Fine,
she can't
but
kick
but if she gets sued, right? Your house is part of her assets, or if she gets divorced, your house is part of her assets as well, right? So that's the only issue, and we're really worried, unfortunately, about people who that their kids. You have to really trust your children, right? Like, you have to obviously very much trust your children and know that they're not going to get into a financial trouble that will cause you to lose your house, which has happened.
This house where they live together
Yeah.
has to be. She can't own another house.
Correct. If she owns another house, then your house might be the investment property versus this one, for her.
For me, not for me.
Not for you, not for you. Okay?
Марк, I think I'll translate
I think
this
it's
part.
important.
Да, женщина просто очень важный вопрос подняла. Оформление совместных активов с детьми. Да, допустим, кто-то там дочку вводит в тайтл и так далее. Значит, тут нужно смотреть не только на налогообложение, но и на риск. Да? То есть так называемый asset risk, exposure risk. То есть мы не фанаты давать советы, чтобы вы при жизни какие-то активы переводили на детей, даже на замечательных детей. Мы не говорим сейчас, как говорится на английском, bad apple, да, там про наркоманов и алкашей, мы говорим про замечательных, идеальных детей. У вас всегда есть дополнительный риск. То есть один риск, давайте я с конца начну. Теоретически кто-то судит человека за что-то, да, по бизнесу, еще почему-то. Например, car accident at fault, да, автомобильную аварию человек сделал, он виноват, и он посадил в инвалидное кресло какого-нибудь стоматолога с инкомом в $1 миллион. У вас ограничение по car insurance, ну, по автомобильному полису $1 миллион или $2 миллиона. да? И за 2 надо еще больше платить. Вам иск может прилететь на гораздо большую сумму, это прилетит на активы. Такой примерчик дал, да? Второй пример, ну, самый такой подходящий, это развод, да? То есть вы не можете контролировать семейную жизнь вашего взрослого ребенка, даже если он самый замечательный, да, у него есть вторая половина, муж, жена, и вы не хотите, чтобы в пожилом возрасте вдруг ваш дом стал частью бракоразводного процесса и деления вот этих всех пирогов по частям, да?
Protect yourself.
No,
How do you protect yourself?
то есть the main point, самое главное, если актив ваш, не нужно вводить детей. То есть вы дополнительный риск просто создаете. У вас тоже этот риск, безусловно, есть. Но когда вы вводите дополнительных членов семьи со своими взрослыми бизнесами, семьями и так далее, вы просто дополнительно создаете риск. То есть есть другие стратегии, которые позволяют избежать, скажем, налогообложения или минимизировать, чем мы и занимаемся, да, вместо того, чтобы вводить в тайтл вместе. Теперь, если, опять же, вот женщина спросила, capital gain, очень важный момент. То есть если, допустим, и мама, и дочка, они живут в этом доме, это principal residence для обеих. Это один разговор. Второй, что часто делают, я это вижу, взрослая дочка замужем, свои дети, свой дом, у нее там principal residence, у человека не может быть 2 principal residence одновременно, объявляется в CRA, какая property election делается, дальше ввели эту дочку в эту property, там 50-50 с мамой, да, 50/50. Прошло какое-то количество лет, дом вырос на 1 миллион, и происходит capital gain, да, или если вы продали, то есть может быть какой-то taxation, который вообще, ну, налогообложение, которое, скажем, никому очень даже и не надо, да. Если бы на маму оставляли полностью title, capital gain бы не было, потому что это principal residence для мамы был бы, правильно? И дочка бы получила бы этот дом в наследство, да, она бы заплатила налог на estate, но его в любом случае платится, да, но он маленький, а capital gain может быть в разы больше.
Now let me translate.
Thank you. Go for it.
Get a will.
Get a will, yeah.
Speak to a professional. Have your will reviewed. Somebody asked me earlier, they have a will that they have it's a written will. It's called a holograph will. Is it enough that they write it out themselves and they have 2 witnesses? Yeah, that's okay. Like that will, even if you don't have 2 witnesses, that will hold up. But it subjects you to litigation by people who are not happy with that will. Meaning, they say, no, you know, I was supposed to get, my Auntie Rose told me that I was getting $100,000 from her estate. I'm going to get lawyers involved, sue. And it always happens, I'm telling you, it's the biggest part of legal business is estate litigation. So now you're going to have to give that person somebody in order to, some money to go away. It just means don't go to that. Make sure that you have a will done. There are fantastic lawyers who've done it. It's not very expensive. And even if you go, there's an online service called Epilogue or Willful. That's where you can actually do a will online. And anything, Rabbi Malayov, you could actually have it on your website. It's called Epilogue for Charities, where you could make it available to all of your kehila that they can go online right away. And of course it says, would you like to make a gift to the Bukharian community? You know, push that button too. But you should really make it available to your group. It's very important. Epilogue, E-P-I-L-O-G-U-E, Epilogue. And they're actually part of the RBC uses them. The bank uses them. Yes.
You mean that such will, it won't be subject to litigation?
It won't be as subject to litigation as having a handwritten will.
So you have the will from the lawyer, and then somebody says, and somebody comes and says, but Aunt
Rose.
Rose, she promised me that. So still this
There's always a possibility. The point is,
so there is no difference.
so there's always a possibility. It's like this. If you know, God forbid, you need brain surgery, right? You don't look in a magazine and go, okay, if I just, you know, cut here, you don't. You're going to go to a doctor. It's not worth it. It's called being cheap. People are cheap. They do it by themselves because they're going to save $500. So they're cheap. And now what happens is for $500, they're going to have tzoras. Tzoras. You know what tzoras is?
Oh, yes.
So wouldn't it be better to spend $1,000 and have no tsuras than spend zero and have tsuras? I don't know. We're smart people.
Mark,
One thing-
let me
Yeah, please.
say in Russian. I will give example of doing this without planning. Just
Yeah.
simple. Huh? In English?
What's in it? No, but
No.
I've said what it,
Yeah,
I've said what
I'm
he's just
translating.
saying what I said to them in
Я.
Russian.
Значит, подытожить. То есть понятно, что на ваш вопрос, могут ли оспорить завещание, да, вам любой лоер, любое завещание можно оспорить. Однако, если его правильно проработать с профессионалом, вы минимизируете шансы, что кто-то останется из ваших детей недовольным. Я вам сейчас дам классический пример, вот просто, как это, хрестоматийный, да. Пожилая женщина, у нее коттедж за 500 тысяч без моргиджа и RRSP 500 тысяч. Она без всякого разговора с financial advisor'ом говорит, окей, у нее 2 сына, она пишет завещание по 500 тысяч вроде на бумаге, правда? Одному коттедж, второму RRSP. Но когда она умирает, после налогов, которые мы только что проговорили, у RRSP 500 тысяч остается 250, даже чуть меньше, а у коттеджа остается гораздо больше, потому что там capital gain, он по-другому облагается налогом. И теперь 2 сына, а особенно с невестками вместе, да, одна говорит, почему тебе, шмак, осталось 250, а ему осталось 375. И они начинают друг с другом судиться. Это классический пример, когда если бы женщина поговорила с financial advisor'ом, ей бы это объяснили, она бы по-другому структурировала завещание и убрала бы причину воевать у детей, да, вот и все.
And now I'm going to translate, okay? I'm going to translate. Get a will, okay? Get a will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get it?
Next,
Okay.
let's go into get a will. Listen, if you don't know a lawyer and you don't want to pay $1,000 and you're cheap or you don't want to do it, it's better to have at least a handwritten will than not. But if you're smart, you know that it's complicated. Anyway, I want to go into the next thing. So we talked about wills. Very important that you have a will. Number 2, besides having a will, your lawyer, it's very important when you get your wills done, you need something called powers of attorney. These are even more important. One power of attorney says that if you become incapacitated, it allows someone to make financial decisions for you. Okay, going to the bank, selling real estate, refinancing things. You know, look, let's.
What you do with the bank? Isn't that what you do at the bank with the bank?
No, you have to go in. First of all, let's say, God forbid, somebody has a parent and their parent becomes incapacitated, right? And you're the beneficiary of the will, right? And you go into the bank and you say, my mother is incapacitated. I need to get money to pay for bills. They say, this isn't going to help you. You're not the power of attorney. They're going to go ahead and bring in a public trustee. They're going to bring in a public.
It needs to be done straight with the bank.
You have to have a will, and you need 2 powers of attorney: one for personal health care, and one for financial. I will tell you a true story. Russian family in this neighborhood. A few years back, the 2 daughters were living in Israel, and the mother had a stroke many years ago, and the father was taking care of the mother. Okay? And then what happened was, many years later, the father had a stroke. And now the mother is incapacitated, and the father is incapacitated. Girls fly in from Israel to take care of parents, right? And they go to the bank, and they say, we're the kids. They say, so what? Get lost. We have to appoint a public trustee to take care of your parents. But it's my parents. It's my, so sad, too bad, get lost. We had to go ahead and get them a lawyer, and it took time and money to eventually get them appointed that they can take care of the family's assets. So you need to have, if anything, powers of attorney are even more important, because there's a 5 times greater likelihood of dying before age 80 than there is of getting sick before age 80 than actually dying. Yes, you had a question.
Is there a time limit for power of attorney?
It really is only when the person is qualifying to need the power of attorney. So long as the person's able to talk and say, no, I'm capable, then you can't do anything. It's if the person becomes incapacitated.
My father did that after he was diagnosed with cancer at the bank.
Who decides that that the person is incapacitated. For example, I think that I'm okay. But my daughter says, no, you're already out.
Well, you guys talk about, you know what? This is a Shalom bias thing you guys talk about afterwards. Let's go weiter. Let's go weiter.
No, it's a theoretical question. It is theoretical question. Theoretical question. A person
If your daughter can prove that you've gone cuckoo, then
proves that the doctor.
a doctor, yeah. But when that person doesn't have their head so much, it's very easy for daughter to decide that you're very incapable. And
Mark, let me just add briefly.
It's a theoretical question.
May you
let's keep going.
fully capable.
Okay, so go ahead. Do you want to talk about powers of attorney? Go ahead.
Да, на русском языке немножко подытожу. Значит, доверенности, во-первых, мы не забываем, что кроме там, старения и получения Альцгеймера или Паркинсона постепенно, можно попасть в кар-акцидент и оказаться в коме, будучи за секунду до этого здоровым человеком молодого возраста. Никакого доступа к активам в этом случае ни у кого нет, и никто не умер. А к вопросу, делать ли это в банке, хорошо, а если счетов несколько, а на недвижимость тоже вы в банке сделаете доверенность? То есть делать доверенность у адвокатов, которая бланкет полностью покрывает все. Хоть у тебя 20 счетов в 20 банках, или вы по каждому банку будете ходить. То есть это непрактично. И эти доверенности, когда адвокаты оформляют завещание, они сразу делают пакет этот с доверенностями вместе, если это два супруга обычно на двоих, и это снимает дичайшее количество проблем, потому что пока ты на это не наткнешься, ты как бы не думаешь, но когда ты наткнешься, уже будет поздно. Вот и все.
Now let me translate, okay?
Get it well.
Get 2 powers of attorney. 2 powers of attorney, okay?
One financial and one
Healthcare. And often what will happen is, you know, I would just say if you're a husband and a wife, I'm just saying, let's say you're a husband and a wife, and you're traveling, God forbid, what happens if you're on a vacation and you become incapacitated for whatever reason? You know, I don't know, there's stuff that, who's going to look after it? You know, if you have a family, who's going to step up? You don't want to leave a mess, that's all. That's number 2, powers of attorney. Next. Yes.
Does the power of attorney have to be signed by a lawyer, or can it be done by?
Again, better to have wills done and powers of attorney by a professional, so that leaves all the doubts away. But on that epilogue, like you can appoint powers of attorney there too. It's better than nothing, for sure.
If you're
Is this interesting so far? It's interesting.
Into a hospital, the hospital gives you both powers of attorney, and then the bank tells you to go get lost. Just
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Remember, get wills, get 2 powers of attorney. Don't do it yourself. No. Okay. Next, titles. We're going to titles. We talked about probate already, ownership, right? If you have it just in your own name, and there, by the way, I know a family where the husband is a doctor, so he has everything in his wife's name, right? He's afraid about being sued or litigation, and he had, you know, houses and real estate and the cottage, and then the wife died, just like that. They had about a $10 million probate, right? So that was $150,000 of tax because of the fact that he was trying to protect himself from creditors. So you just have to, it's not always going to stay the same way. It's going to change as you go along.
Didn't you just say before that the wife's assets roll over to the husband?
Yes, that's from a tax point of view, but probate, no. Probate, no. If you have an asset in one person's name, it's going to have probate. Okay? Okay, let's go. We have a lot more to cover, and I know we started late, so I hope, is this interesting so far? Yeah, you guys are beautiful. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, next. It'll be recorded anyway, so you'll see it. Next, beneficiaries. Make sure that you have the right beneficiary on your RRSP or on your life insurance. If you have a beneficiary on your RRSPs for somebody other than your spouse, or a disabled child, right, who's under 21 years of age, or disabled, then when you die, 53.5% goes to the government. So anything over $220,000, the government's going to get over half that money. So make sure that you put the beneficiaries properly on this. And some people, I know this is crazy, but they get divorced and they forget to change the beneficiary on their RSPs. And the last thing you want after you got rid of your spouse is to find out that that spouse is getting all your RSPs. Okay? Nicht gut. Nicht good. Do you want to say that one?
When you say properly, put the beneficiaries properly. Say you have your children. What does it mean properly?
Well, just make sure that you have your children, okay, if those are the ones, or make sure that if you have a spouse, you want to make sure that they're the beneficiary of everything, right? I'll tell you, I was dealing with a family. He was 80. They owned like a little apartment building. He was like 85, and she was 80, and they set up their estate such that when she dies, automatically there would be a tax, not waiting till the second to die that there'd be tax. And I said, why would you do that? You're gonna, wait. He said, because the wife was afraid that if she dies, he's gonna marry some 65-year-old woman, who has her own kids and whatever, and that he's gonna leave it all to her, and her kids are gonna inherit her estates. Anyway, I know it sounds mishigas, but it happens.
I know such case. I know such.
Yeah, so I'm just saying. So next, trusts. Trusts are a little bit for more sophisticated situations. We're not going to get, it's just a way of creditor protecting money, or finding more tax efficient ways of passing along your money. It could be that you have, let's say, God forbid, a child. Let's say you have a child that's disabled, right? So in Canada, there are government benefits, but there are also benefits that are based on a person's income, or their income. And what happens is if your child inherits money, now they don't get any of those benefits. So there's a trust called the Henson Trust, which is a trust that allows you to still have your children who are disabled be in a situation that even though they inherit money, it won't affect them from getting benefits from the government. What I'm trying to say is get a will. If you have a more sophisticated situation, then you really need professional advice. That's all. Okay? Next. Estate directory. This one's very important. How many people here take care of all of their family's finances? You want to ask the question?
Кто из вас занимается финансами семьи в семье?
Okay, good. So the question that I have for you is, if your spouse that doesn't take care of all the finances, God forbid something happened to that person, you'd be okay, correct? Because you're looking after them. But what happens if, God forbid, you go bye-bye, or you become incapacitated? Does your spouse know where everything is?
Ваша вторая половина знает, где у вас находится все, что связано с финансами, если с вами что-то случится. Пароли, логины, ячейки, полисы и прочие вещи. То есть есть ли какое-то место, что второй супруг пойдет, откроет шкаф или ящик, и там лежит все, что нужно.
Не хотят знать.
And really what I'll translate, get an estate directory. What that is we can give you one, we'll send it to you, it's a writable PDF. You can give it to the shul or whatever. And basically it's like you write down everything you've got, bank accounts, wills, where's the key to the safety deposit box, digital passwords, affinity markets, how many of us have points cards, all of that stuff, LinkedIn passwords, Facebook passwords, and you let somebody else know the whereabouts of that document other than you and your spouse. Because let's say you guys are traveling and there's a problem that comes up, who's going to know all this stuff? And there's something called the Bank of Canada that has hundreds of millions of dollars of money that are sitting in bank accounts that people have moved or they died, or like that nobody knows about. Like you can actually go and look up the Bank of Canada and put your name and your social, and you might actually have money there too. I'm just saying. You just don't want to leave. Everybody has a drawer, that has a whole bunch of papers in it. Somebody's going to have to be like a forensic accountant to go through and figure it out. Just make it easy for people and have an estate directory, okay? Make sense?
You can share that with us?
Yeah, well, we have, if anything, you guys can send us an email. We have a card here or whatever. We'll give you our contact information. We'll send it to Rabbi Malayov, and everybody should really take that. I suggest the husbands and wives, where the husband is looking after it, I say you take your wife out, a little dinner, some wine, you have her interview you. She writes it all down, right? You interview her, and then you put it someplace that somebody other than the two of you knows its whereabouts at all times. People always ask me, where should I put it? So that's up to you. I say the best place to put it is in the freezer underneath the ice, because if, God forbid, your house goes on fire, at least, huh?
Today freezers are nice.
Just put it in your driveway. Put it in your driveway. There's all the ice there, you know? Okay. Next, life insurance. Life insurance is something, again, that's a very important thing that people have. There are two types of people. There are people, if you love somebody, you have life insurance. If you don't love somebody, you don't have life insurance, right? And life insurance is that you just don't want to leave debts to your family. You want to make sure that if there's a mortgage, that the mortgage is paid for, that there's debts paid off, that there's food on the table, there's money for a child's education program, or like, so you need to sit down with a professional like Neri over there and sort of go through, well, how much insurance do you need? Like how much, and then find out what type of insurance you should have and how you're going to pay for that insurance, how long you need it for. It's very, very important. Now, most people, Canadians, 80% of the people who buy life insurance buy it because they have an income, they have a job, or they have a company and they're making money and they want to make sure that their family's looked after. But there are people who are very wealthy who use insurance for a different reason. They use it for, as you'll see, they might use it for, well here, this is how most people use insurance to replace income or to pay off debts or for children's education, or as a way to save money from tax, because we don't have a lot of tax shelters left in Canada, other than your principal residence. If it goes up and you sell it, there's no tax, or a TFSA, tax-free savings account. We'll talk about that. That's tax-free as well, but you can only put in $7,000. If you win the lottery in Canada, no tax. If you win the lottery in America, you pay tax. Okay, so buy your lottery tickets here. Yeah. And then the last of the tax shelters is tax-exempt life insurance. Life insurance is a way to almost have like a no-limit TFSA for yourself or for your business, that you can put as much money as you want into it. Your money grows tax-free. You can access that tax-free, and you can pass it along tax-free. So it's important that people look at their own unique situation to figure out what they have. And we love helping people to give themselves a first opinion or a second opinion, you know, on their insurance, but it's really important. So some people use life insurance to pay estate taxes, like your mother, okay? I'm just giving an example. We talked before, if you have a cottage, or you have a piece of other investment real estate that's gone up, you're going to have to pay taxes. Why not use life insurance for pennies on the dollar to come up with those 200 cent before tax dollars to pay the taxes, right? That's a way that people use insurance. Or they use it, let's say if you're in a second marriage, you have children from a first marriage, now you're married to somebody else, you want to take care of this new spouse, but you don't want to disinherit your kids. So people will use insurance for that. Or they'll use it if you have a business and you have a partner. You don't want your partner and his wife to, and their lawyer to be partners with you. So you use insurance to buy somebody out or to be able to protect your interest in the business. Or a key person, or as a way to convert corporate dollars into personal dollars, or they'll use insurance for philanthropy, as we'll see as we go along. But that's the life insurance story. Hang on, I want to just tell you because we want to get through this. Next thing is living benefits. It's actually more important is what happens if you get sick, God forbid. We see too much of this. You know, in Canada, we see too many people who get sick and they can't work, or they have to take care of themselves financially, yet their income has stopped. So what people look at there is a type of insurance. One is called long-term disability insurance. That's something that would ensure your monthly income on a tax-free basis. You would get paid that after, let's say, a waiting period of 90 days, 120 days, and you're basically insuring your lifestyle, and you can use that money for whatever you want. It basically says that if you become disabled and you can't do your regular occupation, that's when you start collecting on it. So they actually have a type of insurance also that says that if you stay healthy and you don't have a claim, every 8 years they'll give you back 5 years of the premiums that you paid. So every 8 years you'll get back 5 years of the premiums, which is kind of like a bit of a forced savings program.
How long term are we talking about?
Pardon me?
How long is the term we're talking about?
Well, these policies generally go up to age 65.
What?
Age 65.
Oh.
Age 65, right? And also you have to have earned income. You have to have income to be able to insure. So again, every situation is unique. Critical illness insurance we think is very important, and that's the type of insurance that if somebody gets diagnosed with one of about 24 illnesses like muscular cancer, heart attack, stroke, bypass surgery, and they survive the diagnosis by 30 days, they can get a lump sum check up to $2 million tax-free, and they can do whatever they want with the money. If they stay healthy, after 15 years, you can actually cancel the policy and get back all the premiums you paid. Okay, so it's kind of like a bit of a forced savings. Or if somebody dies and doesn't qualify for those 30-day payout, so then the family gets back all the premiums that you paid. I'm telling you, I've done 29 cases of people who actually got paid money on critical illness insurance. 29. Only 2 of them died. Everybody else is okay. Like, you know, they get better. 80% of people who have heart attacks today survive. 80% of people who have cancers survive, but they're not able to work as well, or they need time to focus on getting better. That's where critical illness insurance comes in.
What about life insurance, also up to age 65?
No, you can actually get life insurance all the way till age 85, and it goes all the way to 100. Okay? But it's a lot more expensive at that older age. The time to do insurance is when you're young and you're healthy, because it's less expensive and you can qualify, right? Those are examples. Health benefits. We all have at work, you know, you probably have some health benefits that you have that cover your prescriptions, right? Your dental, that type of thing. Those are also benefits. That's something you should be looking at and seeing how those coordinate with what you need. You also, when you travel, make sure that you get travel insurance. We know people who have gone away and had an incident that cost them $180,000, $300,000 without any insurance. Guess what? Your house. You're going to have to come up with that money to pay those bills.
Who does travel insurance to Israel today?
It's a good question. So travel insurance is still, you can still get it in Israel. You can still get it. Life insurance is harder to get when you go to Israel today. Right now, they exclude people traveling to Israel if they want to buy life insurance, if they're regularly going to Israel. But once that changes, once like the situation sort of gets a little bit more normalized, then they would allow people to be able to get insurance that covers you in Israel.
But travel insurance is okay?
Yeah, travel insurance should be fine. We have a guy, he's out in Burlington, his name's Steve Eastwood. Happy to make an introduction to you. He does. And it's not about the price, it's about the words, right? You need to make sure that you're going to be covered. So that's really important. Question, anybody? So let's get back to this list for a sec. The big list, sorry. So we talked about group benefits, retirement and investment planning. Make sure that you should pick a date that you'd like to retire if you couldn't figure out. Does all your stuff work? Like, don't leave it up to chance. Have a professional plan done to make sure that you have a check mark that you're going to be okay. Business succession planning. Make sure that you have a plan for your business if, God forbid, you're not around, that the business can continue, because that business is what generates money for your family. Money down to your kids or grandchildren or aging parents. You know, right now, to be sick and old, if let's say somebody needs either home care or facility care, it can be anywhere between $4,000 and $10,000 a month. $4,000 to $10,000 a month for long-term for care. So it could be that us as adults might be supporting our parents for a long time unless they've got money or have things in place. So it's really important that you look at that. And then the last thing is charitable plan giving, which we'll talk about in a minute. I just really want to zoom through this. I apologize. Let's talk about free money from the government.
Mark, you want me to?
Yes, I want you.
Russia?
This, I think it's really important that you know that the government has programs and strategies to help us save more money or have more benefits or help us educate our children. And I'd like Igor to say this, and I'll say it over in English. But go ahead, Igor.
Значит, про вот эти аккаунты я на русском языке объясню. Значит, RRSP – это Registered Retirement Saving Plan, это пенсионная накопительная программа. Значит, денежку, которую мы туда кладем, она, contribution является tax deductible, то есть он вам занижает текущий ваш доход налогооблагаемый, соответственно, мы не платим таксы сегодня на эту сумму. Но потом, когда мы выходим на пенсию, деньги эти вынимаем, естественно, вынимание денег каждый год добавляется к вашему налогооблагаемому доходу. Абсолютно верно. И может не лучшим образом влиять на выплату государственных пенсий и пособий, потому что это taxable income. Да? Значит, RRSP на сегодняшний день, обычно RRSP у человека генерируется вот это contribution room, то есть сколько он может положить каждый год в зависимости от его инкома, там 18% от дохода с потолком. Потолок этот индексируется, на сегодня он 31, по-моему, там 31 500 с чем-то тысяч. Это сколько можно положить. TFSA, Tax Free Saving Account, то есть мы кладем уже после налоговые деньги, но то, что вырастет в этом аккаунте, не облагается налогом. Нет, да, как вырастет, неважно. Есть лимит ежегодный, на сегодня он 7 тысяч. Программа эта была введена в 2009 году, то есть тот человек, которому было на момент 2009 года 18 лет, и он имел здесь permanent resident статус, или если он приехал позже, с момента получения permanent resident статуса этот рум считается, максимальный рум 102 тысячи на сегодня. То есть если, условно говоря, вот я приехал в 2008 году в Канаду как permanent resident, то есть у меня этот рум есть весь, да, то есть 102 тысячи.
Когда снимаются деньги, они облагаются налогом тогда?
Что-что?
Когда снимаются деньги с TFSA, они облагаются налогом?
Нет. В этом и идея, что когда вы их снимаете, все, что там наросло, если, конечно, наросло, не облагается налогом. Единственное, что забывают многим объяснить, что если вы потеряли деньги внутри tax-free saving аккаунта, то вы потерю с налогов списать не можете.
Можем потерять.
А смотря куда вы кладете. Кто-то кладет в сейвинг, кто-то кладет в акции, кто-то на трейдинге играется, да, в TFSA, там можно потерять даже чудеснейшим образом. RRSP – это программа на образование детей. Значит, до 2500 в год мы кладем, на них, на каждого ребенка, на них государство дает 20% грант. Если low income, там чуть-чуть побольше. Значит, потом, соответственно, когда ребенок идет учиться, вот деньги, которые там наросли, и деньги, которые дал government, они должны быть потрачены на учебу. То, что вы сами кладете в программу, вы можете, в принципе, не отдавать ребенку на учебу, забрать себе и делать с ними, что хотите. Это тоже автотакс деньги, то есть после налоговые деньги вы кладете.
Учебу где?
Учебу где угодно, на самом деле. Даже за границей, колледж, университеты, то есть это не обязательно должен быть Кембридж.
Yeshiva, seminary.
Yeshiva, да. То есть, да. То есть практически все. У меня ни разу не было случая, чтобы пошли учиться, и government сказал, не, это мы не...
Еще нет одного нового аккаунта, который сейчас для disabled.
RDSP, да, ну это такая специфическая вещь, да. Значит, First Home Savings Account – это новая история, которую Трюдо только ввел в прошлом году. Ввел так, что все не знали, как вообще это крутить. Они не дали сначала никаких точных указаний, как это будет. Сейчас уже вроде определились. Значит, мы туда можем положить деньги, как в RRSP, то есть положили у нас снижение налогооблагаемого дохода, и вынуть потом на down payment, не платя налог. Там лимит 8 тысяч в год и lifetime contribution 40 тысяч. Как бы немного, но и немало, можно хоть как-то что-то чуть-чуть поднакопить. Lifelong Learning Account – это, достаточно такая редкая штука, чтобы она использовалась. Если у нас есть деньги в RRSP, мы можем до 20 тысяч максимум, но не больше 10 тысяч в год с RRSP перевести на этот аккаунт и из этого аккаунта заплатить за свою учебу или учебу жены. Не, ребенка там... Вот. Но единственный момент, почему она не сильно используется, программа, потому что там нужно потом через определенное время обратно эти деньги возвращать в РРСП. Да? Если ты их не возвращаешь, ты платишь таксы. Поэтому сказать, что это там супер программа, я бы не сказал. Ну, Canada Pension Plan, CPP, это все знают, как бы это у нас CPP deductions у всех забирают с дохода. Тут у меня лично большой вопрос к CPP есть, потому что, учитывая, как наше правительство тратит деньги и печатает их, я боюсь, что не то, что, например, не факт, что я доживу до CPP, да, а вот может CPP до меня не доживет, да, то есть когда мы будем выходить на пенсию, еще не факт, что этот CPP вообще будет в каком-то нормальном виде.
Let me translate for Igor, okay?
Зарплата існує.
Let me translate for Igor. Speak to a financial advisor and make sure you get as much free money from the government as possible, okay? And
Mark,
see how that works.
I'll make one comment.
Guaranteed, they will have more money from us than we from them.
Единственный сценарий, когда мы можем теоретически CPP не платить, если у вас есть бизнес, корпорация, вот у меня есть корпорация, я выбираю, как вынимать оттуда деньги, дивидендами или зарплатой. Если я вынимаю дивидендами, я не плачу CPP.
So I'm just going to quickly say that in English, RRSPs, you can put away, I think, $32,490, I think, a year. Whatever you put, $32,490 is the max. It's 18% of your taxable income, up to a $32,490. When you put that in, that'll save you half of that in tax, and your money grows tax-free. And when eventually you take that money out, you know, or you use it in your retirement, when it becomes a RIF at age 71, then you'll be taxed on it. That's number one. TFSAs, take advantage, $7,000. You can put away $7,000 into a TFSA. You can invest it anywhere. Your money grows tax-free. You can access it tax-free. If you haven't put any money in up until this point, you could write a check for $102,000 into a TFSA. Spend it, use it, spend it, but I'm just saying it's free money from the government. RESPs, Baruch Hashem, I have 5 children. I've sent all of them to yeshivas and seminaries in Israel. Start when you're young. Put away $50 a month, $100 a month. For up to $2,500, the government will match and give you 20%. They'll give you $500 of free money every year towards your RESP. And you can use it. If your kid doesn't go to school, you can pass it along to another one of the kids. But I'll tell you, it's like either you have $30,000 when they're ready to go to school, and you're like, where am I going to get that? Or you put away a little bit every month, and you get your grandparents to put away the grandparents. And
And if you have RRSP, you cannot, your child cannot get OSAP.
can't get OSAP, right?
May I tell something?
Please, yeah.
Значит, это заблуждение. Ну, потому что ОСАП дают на базе дохода родителей за прошлый год, а не на базе РСП. То есть у меня ни одного не было клиента, кому не давали ОСАП. Более того, мой старший сын, у него был РСП, естественно, я ему делал, ну, понятное дело, и он получил ОСАП на базе того, какой был инком. В какой-то год меньше, в какой-то больше. Там, опять же, зависит от того, живет студент с родителями или нет. То есть это очень большое заблуждение. Никакого отношения РСП к ОСАПу не имеет.
By the way, I'm going to pass this around because we'll be finished in 10 minutes. But everybody, please put your name in here. We have some gift cards that Igor has gone ahead and bought that we're going to pull out of here. So you can have some gift cards. And it's a way...
Tim Hortons, $20, not
$20,000. What are you saying? 20,000, I thought. No? No, but the point is that we'll put you on our list so that you'll get regular emails and part of our subscription of our newsletter. And you'll have a, but anyway, I don't have a pen, I'm sorry. So if you just pass that along, let's continue. Last things.
There's a pen here.
No, those don't work, they don't work. You need a. The other thing was the first home savings account. First, that came about last April. It's a very cool thing where you, if for somebody who hasn't bought a house before, you can put $8,000 away every single year to a maximum of $40,000. And when you give that $8,000, it acts not only as an RSP, so you get a charitable, you get a receipt to save you taxes, but also your money grows tax-free, so it's almost like a TFSA. It's a bit of a hybrid, and it's a great way to help our children to save money to be able to buy a house, because over the course of time, if you have a husband and a wife doing that, and they have RSPs. RSPs allow you to take $60,000 out of your RSP tax-free to use for buying a first-time house as well. You do have to pay it back, but it's like between the FHSA and the RSP, you could create about a $250,000 down payment for a house, which is not so bad, at least. And again, you're taking advantage of what the government's offering. The last couple of things, the Lifetime Learning Program is you're allowed to have, you can take out $20,000 from your RSP tax-free to use for any continuing education. Okay, you can only do $10,000 a year, and eventually you do have to pay it back, but at least you can pull that money out and use it for educational purposes. In other words, there are lots of things the government offers. Sit down with your financial planner and figure out what it is that you could be doing. And then lastly, as I said, there are 3 beneficiaries to your estate. You've got your family, you've got the government and charity. With proper planning, you can be remembered for giving a lot of money to charity as opposed to leaving a big check to the government. What we do is we create something we call accidental philanthropists. That means when you realize how much money you're going to give to the government and you find out that you can actually give that to charity, suddenly people become very charitable. Right? And here's a list. You might be on this list. You might know people who are on this list. But these are all people that have a very big tax bill that they could be turning into charity. And I know the rabbi here and all the different tzedakahs that we have in the city. I'll just give an example. I met with one of the charities introduced me to one of their donors. She was single, never married, and she had a $600,000 RIF that was really only worth $240 if she pulls it out or she dies. And what happened was instead we donated that $600,000 today in its entirety to 3 different charities. So she was able to give it away today.
Tax-free?
Tax-free. $600,000 went to everybody as opposed to the government getting $360,000. That you can actually, if you know, let's say your mother had a $600,000 RSP. It's only worth $270.
So it's RRSP.
RRSP. You can turn into a charitable donation, right?
Who decides what's a charitable organization?
That's called the Hamish approach. Let's not videotape that part. Yeah, whatever. Between friends, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Who decides what's a charitable organization?
Charitable organization. There are 86,000 charitable organizations in Canada, as long as it's a registered.
Canada?
Yeah, in Canada.
In Canada.
86.
I don't want to donate it to Canada.
Where would you like to give it to?
Take a wild guess.
Israel. Lots of ways you can get money to Israel. Lots and lots. Lots and lots. Anyway, I'm just saying, I'll give you another example. There was a family I met with in December. The mother had died. There was a $3.4 million tax bill that they were prepared to pay. They were going to pay a $3.4 million tax bill based on the selling of her house, and they didn't realize they could use charity to offset those taxes. So instead, they happened to be very wealthy, but they instead wrote a check for $7 million to charity, and now the $3.4 million of tax became $3.4 million of charity. Just moving the shells around. So here, simple math. In any given year, when you give money to charity, you can use charitable receipts to offset up to 75% of your net taxable income, and any amounts over 75% can be carried forward for 5 years. But on death, charitable donations can be used to mitigate 100% of your estate taxes. 100%, including going back the year before. So that means for every $2 you give to charity on death, you save $1 of tax. So if somebody has a $100,000 estate tax, and instead you leave $200,000 to charity, there's nothing that goes to Ottawa, and $200,000 goes to charity. It's very powerful.
Recognized as a charitable donation in Canada.
Say that again?
Israeli Amutot.
There's ways around. There's lots of ways around that. Now, last thing. How many people in this room can name their grandparents? How many in this room can name their great-grandparents? Fewer, right? So this is a picture of my great-grandparents, Aaron and Liba Gross, in 1941, before they were killed in the Holocaust. But imagine if on January the 1st, you received an envelope in the mail, and inside that envelope was a check for $10,000 from your great-grandfather. You think you'd remember their name? So with proper planning, there's ways for us to be able to have that sort of legacy and pass things along. They say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's when the weather conditions are perfect. But if it's windy out, the apple's far from the tree, and when there's a tsunami like there is today, the apple doesn't even know it came from a tree. So we should really be looking at ways to pass along our legacies, our morals. We do that through religion, we do that through tzedakah, and we can, we have, tzedakah is, everyone always calls it charity, but that's not the definition. Tzedakah actually means justice or righteousness. We have an obligation to give back. Others gave to us. So it's really important to look at how you can include tzedakah in your estate planning. Rules. There's always rules, right? Number one rule is 48-hour rule. If there's something here that resonated with you, that made sense, do something about it within the next 48 hours. If you don't, you're going to hear this. Wah, 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 wah. It's as if he never came. You got to do something, It's not just about listening. You have to put it into action. Get a will done. Reach out to us, however we can help you. Connect on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn every day and posting lots of interesting cases of people saving taxes and doing things for charity. We provide a no obligation first or second opinion to help you with your stuff. Neri over there, us, there are other great people in the community. Just reach out to somebody, okay? And there's no obligation, but at least better to know than not to know. We also have lots of stuff. If you want, send an email to me and be happy to send you stuff to read. Here's something very cool. I did a TED Talk back in 2019 called The New Philanthropy. You should watch it. It'll help frame a lot of the stuff we talk about. I was in the disruptors category. It's a really cool thing. So learn about it, do the stuff, but don't ignore. And here's our contact information. And that, my friends, is that. I hope this was interesting.
Card.
Yeah, we have a business. Yeah, I have a business card too we can give you. Here, hand out some business cards here. And Neri, you got some cards, Neri? You have some business cards? Anyway, the most important thing, I'm just going to leave you with one story, crazy story. There was a fellow, his name was Nick. He heard me speak at an event. He was a guy in his 70s, never was married, and he was like a scientist. And we saw that he had a $3 million, oh good, here's Neri's business card as well. Okay, great advisor. And Nick was, oh wait, not that, those are the gift cards.
Where is yours?
Here, right there. Nick was never married. He was also was in the Holocaust, and he had a $3 million tax bill. He had a $3 million estate tax bill. So we were looking at ways to figure out, we went to different charities to come up with ways to create stuff. He wanted to do stuff with science, physics, all of this stuff. Anyway, he kept putting it off. And I would keep trying to be in touch with him. And then I called him one day, and he said, Mark, it's not a good time to talk. He was at North York General Hospital. He had had a heart attack, and he said, I'll call you when I get out, okay? Anyway, the following Wednesday, I saw the obituary notice that he had died. And I went to his funeral. There's just a few people there. He's part of a hobby group, and I thought to myself, Nebuch, how sad. He had an ability to be able to do so much good with his money if he had just given it the attention, but instead it didn't happen. And the government's going to get a whole bunch of money. So I encourage everybody, take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. And I just want to thank again the rabbis, and for all of you for coming on this Sunday afternoon. And if you have any more questions, we'd be happy to answer them after the session is over. So thank you very much for coming today.